founder's son fired me during a live-streamed town hall while eating a blueberry muffin. That's how my 19-year career ended, between bites of Safeway pastry and buzzwords like modernization and synergy. He didn't look up from his notes when he said it, just waved a limp hand like I was some outdated printer they were recycling. I muted my mic, stood up, walked into my kitchen, poured coffee, and didn't cry. I didn't scream, didn't even blink. Because what no one at that little ego parade understood, not HR, not the CFO, and certainly not Muffin Boy, was that they'd just killed their liability shield with one mouthful of stale carbs. Let me rewind before we get to the implosion. 19 years. I was there before they had an ERP system, before they had a second office, before they even had a damn receptionist who knew how to forward calls. I'd survived 3 CEOs, 2 board overhauls, and 1 actual fire in the server room. I was the one they called when the acquisition team was crying over compliance red tape at 2 a.m., or when a vendor filed a breach of contract claim and nobody else even knew what Clause 14A was. The joke was, when in doubt, call her before legal. And they did, always. People thought I was quiet, that I just liked organizing risk matrices and coloring Excel cells. Maybe I did, but that silence, that was insulation. Every time a lawsuit threatened to go public, I made sure it didn't. When 2 execs got caught using the corporate MX at a strip club in Reno, I worked with legal to reclassify the expense under client entertainment, then rewrote the damn policy to close the loophole. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud, but I was the reason they never burned down in public. Oh, I was also the named key person on the $500M liability umbrella. Small detail. They didn't even know. Not really. It had been so long since anyone reviewed the policy binder that I doubt Muffin Boy even knew we had a binder. It lived on a shelf in my office next to the fireproof lockbox and the last working stapler. Clause 7.1, page 48. Coverage contingent upon the active employment of redacted for privacy. RIN identified as the key person. My name, in ink, not just a title, not just a position me. If I was gone, the coverage dissolved. Retroactive liability returned. Pending lawsuits would get teeth. I checked the binder once a month, habit, ritual, and 2 weeks before the firing, I'd flip to the renewal schedule and notice something cute. The renewal date was coming up, October 4. That's the thing about habits. Sometimes they save your ass. Other times, burn someone else's. And if you've made it this far into the story, thanks for sticking with me. If you're into office train wrecks, slow burn revenge, or just like watching egos implode under the weight of their own incompetence, tap that subscribe button. Maybe throw a like our way too. It seriously keeps this whole weird little operation going. Anyway, when Muffin Boy finished announcing my transition, I closed the laptop. No speech. No goodbyes. Opened the folder on my desktop labeled Liability Instruments and clicked on the PDF with the header, Key Person Policy Executed Copy. Then I opened my email, typed 4 words to the insurance provider, confirm lapse per clause, attached the unsigned renewal page, and hit send. Then I made eggs over medium. Because dignity isn't loud, it's patient. He walked in like he'd been waiting his whole life to hear applause. New CEO, barely 32. Shiny shoes that probably cost more than the quarterly bonus he just canceled. And that smug little half-smile like he'd just discovered gravity. The town hall wasn't even supposed to be live-streamed. But he insisted. Transparency is the new innovation, he said. There were over 300 of us on the call, and I swear you could hear people shift in their chairs the second he started with, "It's time for change." He called me out by name. After 19 years of dedicated service, Redacted will be transitioning out of her role to make room for fresh blood. We thank her for her contributions. That was it. No video on his end. No camera, no eye contact, not even the decency to let me speak. Just a pre-written statement about future agility and leaning into modern leadership. The HR director sat in a corner tile on Zoom, face frozen in that corporate constipation look. Tight smile, blinking too much, probably praying I didn't unmute and torch the building on my way out. I hovered over the mic button for a full 5 seconds. 5 seconds where I thought, maybe I should say something. Maybe I should tell them about the pending legal claim from the 2016 merger they still haven't resolved. Or about the fact that 2 key vendors have escalated contract breaches directly to arbitration. Maybe I should mention that I'm the one who holds the compliance audit logs for every departmental handoff since 2009. Maybe I should say, enjoy bleeding out. But I didn't. Instead, I clicked leave meeting. Quiet as a tomb, no fanfare, no panic, just gone. I walked to the cabinet in my home office, the ugly one with the brass handles and the squeaky top drawer, and pulled out the accordion file I labeled years ago, half as a joke. When they get stupid. Inside was the hard copy of the key person policy, original ink, wet signatures. I slid it out with care like a priest handling scripture. Clause 7.1. Clause 9.2. Renewal authority, named person requirements, assumption liability, all there. Then I opened a folder on my desktop, digital twin, liability instruments, double-click. There it was, the renewal sheet, unsigned. They'd emailed it to me last month. HR forgot to follow up, or maybe they just assumed I'd rubber stamp it like always. Funny how you stop doing favors once they feed you to the wolves. My inbox was still open. I scrolled up, past the auto-generated meeting reminder, past the Wellness Wednesday newsletter, until I hit the thread, renewal request, key person umbrella. Sent September 5. Due September 29. Today was October 2. I smiled. It was a small smile, kind you give when a train that's been rumbling toward you for miles finally jumps the track, only it's not aimed at you anymore. I didn't answer HR's Slack ping. I didn't respond to the CFO's calendar invite. I didn't join the transition support call they tried to schedule later that afternoon. Instead, I sent a forward email to our insurance carrier. Confirm policy status lapse. Attached, 1 unsigned renewal document. No CC. Oh, BCC? No fuss. Let them dig their own crater. I had the shovel in hand, but I didn't need to swing. All I had to do was step aside. It was 8 years ago, in a conference room with broken blinds and a coffee stain shaped like Florida on the laminate table. The insurance broker, older guy, ex-military, eyes like he'd seen some things, slid the thick stack of policy documents toward me with a kind of reverence usually reserved for explosives. Or the nerve center, he said, tapping the cover. If you go down, the place goes with you. I laughed at the time. Said something like, tell that to the board, they still think I'm just the lady with the spreadsheets. But he didn't laugh back. Just pointed to the clause he'd marked with a post-it, named Key Person Clause 7.1. It was boilerplate, but I saw the value instantly. Most policies assume a position, head of risk, VP of ops. This one named me. In print, me. Specifically, I remember the legal team balked. What happens if she leaves? One of the junior attorneys asked. I answered for them. Then the coverage dissolves unless I renew it. It's called leverage. They didn't like that word. Leverage, it made people nervous. But the founder signed off. Back then, he knew what I was worth. Back then, the house wasn't being run by a buzzword in Gucci loafers. Every year since, I signed the renewal myself. Read every line. It's sure no one snuck in a change to my designation. The policy was always clean, always binding, and always mine to renew. Until this year. This year, HR got sloppy. They sent the renewal packet late. I got it on September 5th after 2 reminders from the broker. The email from HR read, "Hi, quick signature needed for the key person policy, thanks. No deadline, no urgency. Like I was just approving an office supplies invoice." I flagged it, marked it unread, waited. They never followed up. September passed. October 1st came and went. Now, on October 2nd, 5 full days past the renewal date, I sat with the physical policy open on my kitchen counter, next to a mug of black coffee, and the slow realization that I no longer had to carry the weight of their negligence. Clause 9.2 stated in plain terms, failure to secure named key person renewal within specified timeframe results in immediate lapse of umbrella coverage and assumption of liability for all pending legal matters. The words didn't feel dramatic. They didn't feel triumphant. They just felt accurate. There was no glee, no adrenaline rush. Just the crisp snap of reality falling into place, like when you finally get the right wrench on a stubborn bolt and hear that satisfying click. This wasn't revenge, it was accounting. They made a cut without checking what was attached to the artery. I checked the date again. October 2nd, 5 days overdue, not a minute left on the clock. I flipped to the last page. Signature line blank, no print name, no date, no initials. Nobody in leadership had bothered to read what they were cutting loose. Bragged about fresh blood without realizing I was the one who'd been stopping the bleeding this whole time. My hands didn't shake as I closed the folder. I slid it back into its case. Then I opened my inbox and read the insurance company's response. Policy expired. Key person clause inactive. Coverage terminated. No drama. No exclamation points. Just a body hitting the floor that no one had noticed was alive until it stopped breathing. Subject line, policy renewal confirmation, 4 words. That's all I typed. Body of the email, please confirm the key person clause has expired. No hi, no hope you're well. No signature block with my old title or LinkedIn links. Just a single line of surgical precision, sent from my personal email with the policy number in the subject like a scalpel label. The reply landed 13 minutes later. Confirmed. Clause inactive. Per Section 9.2. Policy nullified. Liability coverage, $0. All prior protections vacated. I didn't blink, didn't smile, didn't forward it. I just highlighted the text and copied it into a new Word doc labeled Proof of Lapse Internal Use Only, then dragged it into a password-protected folder with the rest of the quiet grenades I've kept over the years. The subject matter might be dry, compliance, liability, legal indemnities, but the consequences? Nuclear. That exact moment, whether by fate, timing, or just the universe cracking its knuckles, a docket alert popped up on my phone. A class action claim we'd kept buried in procedural limbo for 3 years had just resurfaced. The plaintiff's lawyers had filed a motion to reopen discovery. The court granted it. Translation: the wolves were back at the gate. Only now, the fence was gone, and the only person who used to keep it electrified had been transitioned. Opened the case file out of habit. Same old allegations: wage misclassification, improper termination, failure to pay accrued overtime for contract workers during the 2018 scaling project. It wasn't nothing. It never was. We danced on the edge of legality with that one, skating by because I knew how to bury skeletons in the right closets. But skeletons have a habit of rattling louder when there's no one left to silence them. And now, wasn't even a policy to shield them. The timing couldn't have been more poetic if I'd planned it. I didn't. That's the thing people never understand about me. I don't seek destruction, I just stop cleaning up after it. The office group chat started lighting up a few hours later. Did anyone else see the court filing? Why is legal freaking out? CFO just canceled his vacation. I didn't answer. I didn't gloat. I just made myself a sandwich. Turkey, provolone, mustard. Sat down in my backyard with a fleece throw and the sounds of nothing but wind and distant traffic. My phone buzzed once, HR, probably trying to send some boilerplate exit survey or arrange a transition interview. I silenced it. Let it die in the grass next to me. They'd never even thought to ask why I was listed in the policy as essential. Never questioned why the umbrella only applied if I was still employed. Maybe they thought it was honorary. Nice gesture, like a trophy wife's name on the yacht lease. But insurance doesn't do sentiment, it does math. And the math now read: exposure equals $500 million minus $500 million coverage equals, oh dear God, we are so royally screwed. I didn't tell anyone, not yet. There's a kind of pleasure in stillness, in knowing the iceberg is real and watching the ship sail toward it full speed, all lights on, orchestra playing, deck chairs arranged for maximum denial. I sipped my coffee, opened a library book I'd been putting off for years. Sometimes, the best revenge is silence, because it means you're no longer the one cleaning up after their mess. You're the one who left the mop in the corner and walked out. Just checking in. Smiling face with smiling eyes, hope there's no hard feelings, was the subject line of the email HR sent me 3 days after my quiet exit and 4 days after the insurance expired. The smiley face really tied it together, like a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. I stared at it for a moment, sipping my coffee, then archived it without opening. No reply. If they wanted to pretend this was a mutual decision between adults, fine. Let them drown in their own professionalism. They always said HR was neutral. That's a lie people like to believe right up until the moment HR smiles at you while unlocking the handcuffs on your career. I was transitioned with less ceremony than the office goldfish. At least when that thing died, someone said a few words and flushed it with dignity. On Thursday afternoon, a message landed in my personal LinkedIn inbox. It was from Sarah, one of the junior analysts in finance. Smart kid. Knew enough to still ask questions, sharp enough to know which ones not to ask on Slack. Her message was simple: hey, weird question, but were you the named person on the liability umbrella policy? I stared at it, let it sit, then typed back I was, past tense. She didn't reply right away, but I saw the typing bubble flicker, then disappear. That's how you know the truth landed somewhere it wasn't supposed to. By nightfall, the company intranet updated. quietly. Buried 3 clicks deep under legal right arrow risk, right arrow archive was a new upload timestamped 6:03 p.m. Pre-transition risk snapshot internal review only. I knew that file. I'd written most of it. It was old, back from the days when the founder still had his hands on the wheel and we were prepping for a possible IPO. I downloaded it out of curiosity. Sure enough, there on page 11, bullet point 3 under operational vulnerabilities, the same phrase I'd written 5 years ago. Key person policy is tied explicitly to redacted. Any leadership shift must ensure continued designation to prevent lapse. Funny how nobody read it back then. Funnier still that legal was digging it up now, probably with the same feeling you get when you finally lift the rug and see how much filth you swept under it for years. I didn't send anything in response, didn't point out the irony, didn't explain the clause, or the dates, or the precise mechanism by which their parachute had just been turned into a napkin. I was done explaining myself. I spent 19 years being the person they dumped their chaos on, being the fixer, the dependable one, the only person who knows where the bodies are buried. They loved saying that, like it was a compliment, like I was some mafia consigliere instead of a woman trying to keep a crumbling company from faceplanting into regulatory hell. Now, let them dig up their own graves. HR sent a follow-up on Friday, this time with an attachment, a generic NDA and a form titled Exit Interview Feedback Optional. I didn't open it either. Optional is right. I clicked block sender and felt lighter than I had in months. There's a point where you don't need closure. You just need distance. No confrontation, no fireworks, just the cold math of consequences doing what consequences do. Let them squirm. The junior staff whisper. Let legal wonder if there's a way to unwind a lapse in coverage that was their own doing. I already knew the answer. There wasn't. Monday morning arrived like it always does in that building. Late coffees, badge scanner beeping, interns triple-checking if business casual includes sneakers. But that day, the real action started at 9:17 a.m. when an email dropped into the inboxes of the CFO, general counsel, and 2 board observers. Subject line, key person lapse. Immediate risk notification. It didn't look dramatic. No red font. No bold alert banners. Just plain black text on a white background, the kind of thing you might ignore if you didn't recognize the sender's domain as your insurance provider. But the CFO clicked it, and then he stopped breathing for 5 full seconds. The message was short, brutal, surgical. Clause 9.2 of policy #453XLJ. The failure to execute renewal of the named key person rider within the stipulated timeframe has resulted in full nullification of umbrella liability coverage, effective retroactively as of 12:00 a.m. October 1. Current coverage status, $0. Please refer to addendum for active legal exposures. Addendum attached. 5 pages, titled Pending and Probable Risk Events, high priority at the top of the list. The revived class action suit, filed, active, judge assigned. Then the arbitration filing from the 2018 vendor contract dispute. Then a former executive's whistleblower complaint, previously sealed, now marked reopened upon lapse. All of it previously buffered by the very coverage they had just let die with a smile and a muffin. From my end, silence. I was in my backyard, fleece over my shoulders, sipping green tea from a chipped mug I got during a company retreat back when retreats still included people like me. My phone was inside, on silent, face down on the counter next to a pie I'd just taken out of the oven. Apple, extra cinnamon. Because some Mondays aren't about urgency, they're about peace. I didn't know the exact moment the CFO read the message, but I imagined it, the frozen posture, hand still on mouse, pupils shrinking as the math started ticking like a